Okay, so recently I was thinking about how I might have a special interest in human behavior because when I see like other people's special interests, sometimes it's very obvious. It's like, oh, cars or like something to do with like some type of game or whatever. It's like it's very obvious because it's like this person is so passionate about this in a way that like um it's like other people are not. So it's like, yep, special interest, right? This like consumes a lot of their time. It's something they're very passionate about. And for me, I have a lot of interest in so many different areas. And like, I guess I don't really know exactly what defines a special interest, but I was thinking recently that I might have a special interest in human behavior because from a very young age, like I've always been intrigued by why people do the things that they do. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I knew I was different from the majority of the people around me. I mean, at this time, I thought that I was just a complete outcast. I thought that there was nobody like me, right? But, anyways, because I didn't understand other people, I made it a priority to learn how other people behaved and do my best to mimic them. Like, like I said, I would think about like why people did the things that they did. And so there's so many things coming to mind now because I realized that like I'm so intrigued by it that like I would ask other people like, oh, why did this person do this? But then I realized that that got me into some um bad situations because it was seen as gossip, like me saying like, oh, can you believe that this girl did this? Like, it's not like I would say it like that, but that's how other people would interpret it because I would ask people about other people. And then that seems like I'm being judgmental and critical of these people, but really I'm trying to understand. I'm asking questions because I'm curious, because I want to understand why they're doing the things that they're doing. But to other people, that's seen as being judgmental and nosy and like overstepping boundaries because you're supposed to mind your business and like not ask people these questions because they're too personal, which I didn't realize because, now that I know I'm autistic, like it wasn't obvious to me because if other people had asked me these same questions, I would just answer them. I wouldn't think too much about it. I wouldn't realize that it could be judgmental. And more is making sense to me now. I'm like, oh, that's why like I remember I got into some drama in the 8th grade where this girl was going around talking to other people about me, and the only reason why I knew is because these people, they came to me and told me. Like, it was, I think, 4 different occasions that she was talking about me because it was 4 different people that weren't, it wasn't all in the same place, right? um and I was so confused because she was so nice to my face. I didn't understand why she was saying the things she was saying about me and what she meant by that. And I was so distraught. I came home and I was telling like my family about it, and they were telling me like, hey, this girl did this because she might be jealous of you. Like, she thinks that like maybe you're prettier than her or something. And so, it makes her feel better if she talks badly about you. And I could not understand it. I could not wrap my head around it. And I was just so confused because I didn't understand. Like, why does everybody else understand, but I don't get it, right? And so situations like that, like, made it more obvious to me that I was like, um, having social difficulties, right? Because I think whenever I talk about being high masking, a lot of people get confused because in the moment, like in what they see of me, it doesn't look like I'm struggling socially. In fact, some people will say that I seem like I'm like the life of the party and I come off very extroverted because social struggles are seen as like, oh, you're the shy person that like stands in the corner and you don't have much to say and you don't know how to interact. Whereas with me, I actually, like, I think part of it is that I also have ADHD. And so a lot of that, the way that ADHD and autism come together, it's different than if you just had autism alone or if you just had ADHD. And so a lot of the times with my ADHD, like the inattentive part, I know that I would miss a lot of social cues because I would, like, you notice I look off to the side a lot. So the social cues that a lot of people would get visually, like, oh, this person's facial expression, I know how they might have interpreted this, or like, oh, the person's body language, like they stepped away, they're uninterested. I oftentimes wouldn't catch on to that because especially as I speak, I tend to look away. So like I said, I don't see the reaction. Other people might see that and see and understand, oh, this person, like I should stop talking about this because this person's not interested. But I wouldn't notice that. I could be rambling and then all of a sudden I noticed that people are walking away from me, but I didn't realize what it was that I did or what I said because I got so caught up in expressing what I had to say that I didn't realize how it was being received by other people. That might sound a little bit complicated, but like, you can kind of get an idea of how my brain worked in social situations where I am constantly studying people, but a lot of times it's afterwards that I catch it. And then I take whatever I learned from that social interaction and then I try to bring it into the next one so that I can mask more effectively. So I'm like, okay, I guess it does kind of sound like an interest in human behavior, right? A special interest in human behavior. And then also another reason why I guess this video is just turned into why I think that I have a special interest in human behavior. I did post like a short TikTok about it, and somebody asked, like, commented, I'd love to hear more on what you have to say about like something about what you're most interested when it comes to human behavior. And I can't pinpoint like why I'm like if there is a specific area in which I am more interested in human behavior, but I was like, I can talk about human behavior overall and what intrigues me. So I was like, I'm gonna go with that. Like I will look at somebody or I'll meet somebody for the first time and they might mention a little bit about their lore. And from that information, I can pinpoint like, oh, so I can kind of put together a pattern. I'm like, okay, so a lot of people who have experienced this, they might behave in this way. How do I say this? I noticed that once I started looking more into ADHD and neurodivergence overall, it's really easy for me to pick up whether or not somebody might be neurodivergent. And then it gets confirmed because they'll mention it in conversation. And then that's a point where I'm like, okay, I thought so because I also have ADHD or I also have autism, and it's a fun interaction. But, oh, that also, okay. So I don't know exactly how it started. Maybe it was just because in the very beginning of me, learning how to interact with people, I knew that I was doing it wrong. So I started studying people to learn how to do it better. The reason why I knew it was wrong is because people's reaction would be bad, or they would tell me, you can't say that, you can't do that. And it was really sad, like early on, because I remember I would feel so much shame about it because I knew that I wasn't interacting properly only because people told me, like, I already said that. Like say I was at the zoo one time or maybe it was a restaurant. It was something where like I was with some of my family and if you were a certain age, the tickets would be lower. So they were like, okay, when we go there, you guys are all this age. And I'd be like, huh? Like I'm not 10, I'm 11. Like, what do you mean? And so they would go up there and they'd be like, okay, how old are the kids? And then they say, they're all below 10. And then I would speak up and I'd be like, no, I'm 11. And what they were trying to do is get us to lie about our age so that we could get a cheaper ticket. But I had no idea. I wasn't in on it and they didn't explain it to me. They just kept saying you're 10. And I'm like, no, but I'm not. So why do you keep saying that? But if they stopped and explained it to me, then I would have been fine pretending to be 10 for a cheaper admission into the buffet or something. But I didn't know. Whereas even my cousins that were like younger, say I'm 11 and then I have cousins that are like 8 and 9, they understood the joke or they understood what they were supposed to do. I didn't understand. I needed things told to me directly. And so anyways, I start to realize that the way that my brain naturally functions is not the way that other people's brains function. So I'm like, how are their brains functioning? Like, what is it? So I learned to communicate differently with different people. I started to learn that I couldn't be as literal. I learned that other people are not as literal and that they don't mean what they say. So I started to research further into people, and I noticed that I was studying, now that I think back, I used social media as a way to study other people and figure out what was socially acceptable. Because you could see a girl post something and then you can read the comments and be exposed to so many different types of opinions by so many different types of people. You would notice that a lot of girls commenting and giving her compliments, and you could also see a lot of girls commenting and judging her. So that gave me perspective as like, oh, if I were to behave in this way, or if I were to comment, or if I were to post something like this, these are the reactions that I might get. And so that taught me a little bit more about how to present myself in a way that was more easily digestible to other people. So it was a lot about defense, right? And like me being hyper vigilant and very aware of the judgments of other people that, fed my interest in human behavior. But then it also made me very like insecure because I have all these things in my head all the time about like the different ways that other people might perceive me. So anyways, what else? Oh, and I would follow trends, and I would do my best to basically, if I could like see, like I could be looking at so many different people's profiles and they have all these different styles, and I might notice that when this person wears this thing that people are more judgmental, but when this person wears this thing people are more accepting of it. So that let me know, okay, even if I might like this style more, I need to start wearing this style more because it's more socially acceptable. You want to be accepted socially, this is what you need to wear. So then I remember trying to follow trends so specifically because I was scared that if I was not wearing something that was trendy, that I would be judged for it. And I already knew that people judged me based on my behavior. So I started to use looks as more of a protective measure. I started looking into more makeup and hair trends and tried to keep up with those. And what fed into that and fed into my masking was people complimenting me for my style, complimenting me for my makeup, and complimenting me for my hair. And honestly, I don't even know if I liked a lot of these things. Oftentimes I didn't like these things, but I stuck to these trends for the sake of fitting in and trying to appear as neurotypical as I could, right? Trying to think. And I would pay attention to the way that girls behaved at school. I remember my 6th grade year, I had switched districts. So these were people I had never met before. And I remember going into it, I was trying to figure out how I needed to behave and like scoping out everything and scoping out the people and seeing who was considered an outcast, like seeing how other people treated other people, right? I knew who the outcasts were because other people made it obvious that you do not want to be like them. And I knew that I was an outcast, but I knew that if I could pretend, if I could use my pretty privilege, then I wouldn't be treated like one. And so my perspective on my middle school experience was like, I remember the popular girls kind of adopting me because I was pretty. They would always compliment how long my hair was and talk about like, and just say that I was pretty. And I could just say that they were pretty back, and then that's what happened. I just, they became their sidekick friend just like that. I got adopted into the group just like that. And as long as I didn't speak, because I wasn't good, I would study their mannerisms and their behavior and how they interacted with each other, and I would do my best to mimic it. But I wasn't very good at mimicking the behavior and the mannerisms. So I just kind of became a listener, and I would always observe before I interacted. And when I interacted, I did my best to be careful about it and to not show how I truly was, because I knew that if I did that, then I would be outcasted, right? And now, whenever I think back, now I see why I was always so exhausted, because I'm doing all of this mental gymnastics and considering all these different people's like perspectives on how I could possibly be judged before I did anything. Like I would come home so exhausted every day, and I was just so used to it that I never really thought about where it came from, I also spoke about how, and I want to say it was about middle school when this stuff really took off, when I really got into the human behavior, because this was whenever I started watching more Criminal Minds, and I was very obsessed with the part where they would talk about, okay, the behavioral analysis unit, the BAU, they would talk about the suspect and create a profile for them based on what their room looked like and how their upbringing was, and figure out if the suspect fit the profile of somebody who could have potentially committed these crimes, And so I was like, okay, that's interesting. Like there's a pattern. There's things that you can read about somebody and like connect into, just you can take bits and pieces of their behavior and you can put it together and figure out what kind of person uh would be that way. You know what I'm trying to say? And then I started getting invested into psychology. And I was like, oh, and around this time I was having a lot of mental health issues with my anxiety and depressive symptoms, and also I suspected that I had ADHD around this time. And I also started questioning my sexuality. So I was about 12 or 13 around this time. And so all of that led into me trying to figure myself out, like how do other people behave compared to me, and what influences that, and why am I the way that I am? Because I feel like I'm so weird. Why am I like this, right? And so yeah, it was about, and at this time I started suspecting I had ADHD, and I realized that my anxiety, like how sometimes late at night I would get so worried about things that didn't make sense and I felt like I was going crazy. I put a term to that. I realized that I was having anxiety attacks. And so now that I had these terms to, kind of describe who I was, I started to feel like less of a freak. And I found somebody on YouTube. I think his name is Joey Kidney. He spoke about his anxiety and his mental health, and he was one of the few people at the time that where I was like, damn, like this is what I'm going through. Like I'm not alone in this. I get it, and there's other people who get it. And that gave me a lot of hope, and I feel like that's also what led up to me, wanting to talk about my experiences, is because I know that other people are sharing theirs. That helped me significantly. And so, yeah, at this point, I started researching things more. I started getting more into psychology, and I remember also interacting with a lot of random people on the internet, and they would talk to me about their experiences, and I would talk to them about mine, and yeah, and that helped me get to understand people a little bit more. There was something else I was gonna say, but I'm having a hard time remembering. And I really don't want to edit the video. I'm still figuring out the right apps to use, because I want to start editing my thumbnails and, editing my videos, cutting out some areas where I'm rambling a little bit and it's hard to follow. But for now, we'll be okay with a little bit of silence as I sort out my thoughts. So I'm backtracking and trying to remember where I branched off from so I can go back to that and branch off in a different direction that has to do with that same like root. Does that make sense? Oh, okay. So whenever I got into high school, I took a psychology class, and I think this was my junior year. I took AP psychology, and they give you a lot of terms for things that I could have never imagined. And it was things that like I had already been suspecting, like theories I thought I had come up with on my own, but I never had the right terms for it. And then I was learning that there were terms for the things I was already thinking about psychology wise. And I remember just being like a switch flipped, and I was like my brain lit up. I was like, oh my gosh, there are terms for all of these things that I've been suspecting. Like all of my theories that I came up with about people, they're not just theories. There's actual research to back it up. And so psychology became a huge thing for me. And then this was when I had like really thought to myself, like I am almost 100% sure that I have ADHD. And then I think that also helped me understand people even more, because gosh, like I was just constantly studying people. And oh, another thing that I mentioned in my video is that I would talk to people about, like I would talk to my sister about other people. I still do this now. I'll talk to her about something that has happened, and then we'll kind of dissect like, oh, this person might have done this because of this. Because what intrigues me the most is why people do the things that they do, what leads up to it, like the patterns, and like how you can look at somebody and you can see their upbringing and you can kind of predict how their future might be because of their upbringing. But then the people who like defy it, it's like they've broken something. Like I think a lot about how my parents are and how I am and how a bunch of the rest of my family is, and how how the different generations are so different. I'm like, okay, so in this generation it was really common, like these people experience a lot of the same things, like started leading up to very similar lives. Like why is that? And then I think about my own life and how many things have affected the way that I live my life. I think we got a package. I don't think they can hear me. It's okay. I don't need to whisper. So, like for me, I think about the way that my life has changed in the last 5-6 years. That's where the most significant change in my life has been, is in the last 6 years. Because before that, I was living. Okay, that's a lot of other stuff to get into. I'm not going to get too far into that because I know that I'm going to branch off too far. But I'm like, okay, the life that I'm living now, why am I living so differently than I was before? And I see that it's because I have studied other people and I could see the potential for where my life was gonna go based on how I'd seen other people's life go. Like in my last relationship, I was the one to break it off. I broke that relationship off because I could see that that if I stayed with him, that I was bound to end up in the same place as my parents. And I did not want to have a relationship like my parents. I started to see that the dynamics in our relationship was very similar to my parents. And I was like, I don't want that. So I stopped doing that. And that's kind of just how I live my whole life. I can see like, okay, if I keep doing this, this is where I'm going to end up. If I keep doing this, this is where I'm going to end up. And if I keep doing this other thing, that's kind of unknown because I've never experienced that. And so I might look into other people's lives that I think are similar to mine to see what they did. Because I'm like, okay, if this is what they did to get to where they are, and I want to be where they are, then I've got to do what they did. Right? Does that make sense? I know the way that I'm describing this stuff is very abstract because there's a lot of information coming through at once, but I can elaborate on any of this if you want me to. I'm not sure how many people are going to see this. So, but yeah, I'm always open to like questions and insight. I really do appreciate insight because like I said, I learned a lot from the comments and from hearing how other people might interpret, the things that I post. Did that make sense? Excuse me, I'm hiccuping. But yeah, so I guess that's my spiel on why I think I may have an interest in human behavior. I hope you got something out of this. Also, my videos have been like I think it's in the last like 8 or 9 days, I've gained 1,000 followers on TikTok, and I'm like, it just blows my mind because I remember when I had 1,000 and I was so excited about that, and then I was so excited to like reach 5K, and then like I'm just glad that and what gets me most excited isn't the numbers, it's the comments, because I'm seeing that I'm reaching the people that I've always wanted to reach. So many people saying that they relate, or that they're glad that I spoke about this, that like that they've been thinking these things but they never had the words for it, and that they relate to everything that I said, and that they don't feel so alone. That's what I do it for. So I'm really glad that that's working out in that way. But my goal is to start pushing more people over here to YouTube and making more long form content, and I'll keep posting shorts too. But yeah, there's that. Thanks for watching. Bye.